From Channel 36 in beautiful downtown West Hollywood, it's my WeHo world. Show we have tonight. Thank you, my lovely guests, for coming. As you know, we have a very, very important election coming up in West Hollywood. It's March the 3rd, correct?
That's right.
And we have Larry Block, Lindsay Horvath, and James Duke Mason on the show, which are all candidates that are running. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for coming. You're all here. You're currently, none of you are on the city council.
That's right.
All right. Lindsay was on before.
Yes.
But you were appointed.
I was.
Correct. All right. And why were you appointed?
Well, you can ask the 4 council members who appointed me, I suppose.
Good answer.
No, I was of service on the Women's Advisory Board in the community. I had a long record of service before that, very involved on environmental issues, progressive issues, involved in political campaigns, and so was known by some in the community and had been involved and really wanted to step up and be of service. I was encouraged by people I knew in the community, some of my neighbors, some of my fellow Women's Advisory Board members, other leaders in the community to apply, and they said, what's the worst that could happen? You know, you make a few friends, learn some new things about the city,
enemies, right?
And then at the end of this thing that I affectionately refer to as the American Idol of politics, I was selected to serve on the city council. And
West Hollywood City Council is actually the most fun I ever had without laughing listening to that. Okay, it's gotten very interesting. West Hollywood's attracting major money, major development, and people are taking notice.
That's right.
And just to finish up, you were appointed because somebody left the council or died? What happened there?
Yes, so Councilmember Sal Guariello, who had a long record of service in the community.
We have a fountain for him.
Yes, yes, and he had been a tireless servant serving in World War II, having a record as a veteran. You know, he had a long record of service, and so he passed away at the ripe old age of 90.
90,
and,
we should all be so blessed,
exactly, right? Exactly, and so when that happened, the council opted to, rather than go through the process of a special election, go through an appointment process. Yes.
And of course, then you ran and you lost to John D'Amico.
Yes.
Okay, so, all right, now we're going to move over to Larry Block.
Hello.
Thanks for coming, Larry. Pleasure to have you.
My honor.
I love your billboard right above the circus of books. Okay, you know, when I'm going pick up some porn, vote for Larry Block. Got everybody's attention, right?
I guess so.
So you are not on the council right now. You are a commissioner for the council?
I'm on the Disability Advisory Board.
You're on the Disability Advisory Board.
I'm partially sighted. I'm blind in one eye.
You're blind in one eye. And I'm a handicapped person myself. I have severe spinal stenosis. I don't want to get into that, okay, but I know what it's like to be handicapped. I've been living this way for the last 30 years. So how did you get this appointment? Did you have to apply for the job? Were you appointed to it?
Well, the truth is I lost my eye, and then I opened a store to have something to do locally. I had been a real estate agent prior, and the store was around the corner, the world-famous Different Light bookstore, so I really wasn't in retail. I tried to get a store and figure out what to put in the store after. But anyway, I got active in the community, and I went to City Hall because we have, for disability persons, we have taxi coupons.
Right.
And
yeah, I have them.
And I was filling out a form for the taxi coupons because I couldn't drive a car. And submitted it. I got a letter back that the city council had changed the way that they do appointments, and they were moving from at-large appointments to direct appointments. And then one day I got a call from Craig Ray that John D'Amico had searched through the files, and he had called me once to say, would you be interested? And then I was shocked. One day I got a call, I was sitting at Kookaroo, and he said, you're John D'Amico's appointee to the Disability Advisory Board.
Wow.
That was 4 years later. 10 months later, my peers elected me chairman while I was out of town without even putting my name in nominations. So we've done a lot.
It pays to have friends in high places. James Duke Mason, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Duke, now you were on the show before.
I was.
When you announced your candidates. Did you notice anything different about me since you saw me last? No, I lost a pound.
Congratulations.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
You are the youngest candidate running.
I am.
You are the youngest candidate, and I believe I have to have notes here because there's so much going on. Your motto is "You belong to no one belongs to you," and like Cat and Breakfast at Tiffany's. Okay, you're running on the premise that you're young, you're new to all this, and you have a fresh look, and coming into city council. Why do you want to do this?
Well, look, we have a fantastic city. We're incredibly, grateful. We're incredibly privileged on many fronts. Great economy. I think there are many great attributes. However, I think we also have far more potential. And I think the kind of person that would be great to have on the council is somebody who has grassroots activist experience. I was a surrogate for President Obama during his re-election campaign. I've been interested in politics for a while. I was a page in the U.S. Congress when I was 16. So since then, I've become a surrogate to President Obama. I've been a writer for the Huffington Post and the Advocate and Frontiers. I was a board member for Outfest for 3 years, the youngest board member in their 30-year history.
Very nice.
Thank you. I mean, even though I may not have government experience, I definitely have advocacy experience. And really, I think that's the kind of experience we need, because I think what we need to seize the opportunities in front of us, and we also need to take on the fundamental challenges. And I think having some energy and someone who really cares and wants to make a difference in there would be a good thing.
Well, it's certainly, think about it, if all three of you were to win, you could change the course of what the city's going to do. So to be fair, I want to list everybody who's running. There's John D'Amico, he's an incumbent. Brian Bunnigan, is that pronounced right? Matthew Ralston, Larry Block, who's here, Lindsay Horvath, who's here, John Heilman, who's an incumbent, James Duke Mason, who's here, Laura Meister, okay, Christopher T. Lavazzo, okay, Joseph Guadarrama, sounds like a name of a club, John Allendorfer,
Yes.
and Tristan
Shoecraft.
So it's quite a lot of people throwing their hats into this.
That's
Obviously, for a reason. There's many issues that are coming up with the city, and one of them here. Let's see. This city, we're nestled in the middle of the second largest city in the United States, correct? Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's some major investment coming into this city, and there's major players and major buildings going up, and I think there's like, was it 1.5 billion or 2.5 billion in investment money coming in right now with new projects going on. Is anybody, that ring a bell to anybody? With any kind of figure on that?
The amount of
The
money
amount
that's
of money
going to be
right now that
invested.
we have in,
It's somewhere around. I heard 2.4 billion.
You heard 2.4. Okay, we're close on that. So I asked a lot of people out and about if they had any questions for you, and everybody had a question. There were so many questions that I had to narrow them down here. So I'm going to start with question number one, and all feel free to take turns to answer it how you feel best to answer it.
Sure.
Okay. I received a notice that the building on my block, 1216 Florist, was to become a 5-story condominium building with 2 affordable housing units. I thought the last planning commissioner that there was a restriction of 3 stories for new structures. The property already has been torn down and former residents are now gone. Does the forced relocation of all tenants who are paying affordable rents not negate any benefit to affordable housing units? Has the reconstruction been abandoned? Is anybody aware of this project?
I know a little bit about it, but is that an Ellis Act or is that just a rental building? Were they?
It was, I
what's the
believe it
context?
was a rental building. Yeah, it was a rental building. You're going now, we're talking about going 5 stories, which everyone else is 3 stories. So.
That has to do with SB 1818, which is the state law that allows developers to add a 10-foot bonus if they're going to build affordable housing units.
That's with affordable housing. So
It's a state law. It has nothing to do with West Hollywood.
It has nothing to do with West Hollywood at all.
No jurisdiction over
There's no
changing that.
See, my concern is not so much height as it is the kind of development that we're building. You know, I think development is a great thing. I think growth, innovation, I think that's obviously important for a city like ours. I think the question is, are we going to build more condos, or are we going to build micro units, for instance, for young people, for disabled people, for gay people? We need to make sure that we're reinforcing the diverse community that we are. And in my view, I mean, yes, we can build condo buildings, but let's balance it out. Let's make sure that we're also being inclusive of everybody and not just one certain income level that can afford.
How do we do that?
Well, like I said, I mean, I think building, there are a lot of ideas out there, but I think something simple that we can do is, encourage micro units and smaller units. It's a simple thing. I won't go through all my ideas right now, but that's something simple that I think we can do.
Well, one thing too I think we need to remember is that 80% of this community is renters. So I myself am a renter, and if I didn't have a rent-stabilized unit, I wouldn't be able to afford to live in this community. And 80% of the community is in that circumstance. So when you talk about this story, there's at least 80% of the community that can relate to that feeling. What if that were to happen to me? What if that happened to my building? So as a member of the City Council, I would do everything in my power, first of all, to have a voice in possibly overturning the Ellis Act, which I think is very detrimental and destroys communities. I would also make sure that we're educating tenants on their rights. In fact, when I was on the council, I sent out to every renter a tenant's bill of rights so they understood what their rights were. Because I think sometimes some of the renters in this community fear retaliation from their landlords if they start to bring up some of the code compliance issues that have started to happen with older buildings.
Oh yeah.
We really have to protect the housing stock here. It's not just about
creating. I have a friend
creating.
that's 75 years old. He lives on, I won't say what street he lives on. He lives in West Hollywood.
Sure.
And he is so scared to bring a roommate in. And I said he has a 2-bedroom and he lives on a fixed income. And he says, oh, they'll throw me out. I'm like, they can't throw you out if you rent one of your rooms out. And but people, they don't know their rights. They don't understand all this.
That's exactly right. And I think we need to make sure that people understand what the rent stabilization ordinance is and how it protects them. Somebody said to me along the course of the campaign, they said, I think we need to stop talking about renters' rights because we already have the rent stabilization ordinance and that's never going to go away in the city. And I think when people start to feel that way and start to take it for granted, that's when we're going to stop valuing it. We need to make sure that we're very vigilant in protecting it and helping people understand what their rights are.
One thing I wanted to add is, just in the last few days that I've been precinct walking, I've talked to Russians.
When you say precinct walking,
I'm knocking on doors, talking to different
knocking on doors.
Yeah,
like the Jehovah's Witness.
Exactly. No, but I've been in different areas. I've talked to different demographics. Literally everyone I've talked to, not a single person.
They answered the door, really?
Well, not every single person, but every single person that I talked to said that rent was their number one issue.
Yeah.
I mean, they talked about traffic, they talked about parking, they talked about public safety, but so often, I've met with many different members of the local government, and a lot of them have said, well, rent's not really, it's not a real issue, there isn't a housing crisis, and, when you look at the reality of things, and you look at what the individual community is saying, the individuals within the community, rent's maybe the biggest issue. So that's what I'm running on. I mean, if I had to say what my number one issue is, it would be that issue.
So you would lower rents?
Yep. And for small businesses and for residents.
Larry?
Lower my rent.
What do you have to say on the...
Well, anybody who's in a unit now is either in a rent-stabilized unit or came in under market rate. So they're all on par. With the Ellis Act, which was the question about should we change the Ellis Act or something like that, we Ellis Acted at about 500 units, and we built about 500 units. So the housing stock of rent stabilization units is 16,000 units, is the same 16,000 units it was when we incorporated. Condos, building condos at whatever price, allow the city to derive revenue in property taxes. So we're adding new units. Our population is less now than it was 30 years ago. And so some of the new developments for condos, you know, I mean, they're great buildings. We have some beautiful developments going on in the city.
Yeah, there are. There are some.
The planning commission is so excellent in really what they do, and if you really look at most of the buildings, but with regards to affordable housing, when you build a beautiful project next to an old project, the comparative market rents start to change, and people start to get forced out of their units because a new market rate unit comes in, and then so I've advocated something with rent stabilization. I've been working for about the last year, which is allowing a senior or person with disabilities to move from a second floor to a first floor unit or have the right of first refusal, because if they have to leave the city, if they couldn't find, you know, most of us can't afford to live in the city if we had to move.
I hear that a lot. If they leave the city, they couldn't afford to move back into this city.
But all this building is a product of low interest rates, and there was a time when interest rates were high and we were in a recession. There was no building going on.
Right.
So it's not a West Hollywood problem; it's a LA problem, and it's a global. You know, buildings going on all over the place in all cities, and that's what's happening. And old buildings come down, and beautiful new ones come up.
I think it's particularly an issue though in West Hollywood because our legacy, essentially, we were founded on rent control.
Right.
On the premise, so it's different in Beverly Hills. I mean, obviously, I think that we should try to deal with this issue on a regional level. But we, especially in West Hollywood, you know, the fact that we aren't addressing this as urgently, as aggressively as we should be, I think is one of our greatest challenges. So yeah, I think yes, it's a regional issue, but it really should be taken on here.
And I don't think it needs to be a choice between old and new, because some of the older buildings, what they really need is a little bit of love and a little bit of attention that has been long neglected. And I think that's the responsibility of the landlords who own that property. We need to make sure that they are as invested in their property as the people who are in the community.
Is there anyone that oversees that?
What Lindsay brings up is actually very true, because code compliance, the city's responsible for enforcing, say every 7 years you're supposed to paint the outside of your building,
right,
and maintain the outside of your building. I think if we travel through the city, many of the buildings haven't been painted, and code compliance is not maintaining it. On the inside, really each renter, when they move in, they can get their carpet replaced every 7 years. Many renters don't take advantage of that or have their unit painted.
Their walls painted every 4 years.
There are these things that could be done, and both people can.
Yeah, I actually had somebody call me when I was on the council and say he was a renter and in a building on Crescent Heights, and he called me and he said, Lindsay, I really need some help because we have some code compliance issues going on in my building, but nobody will come out and take a look at them. And so my deputy contacted the proper department, and they said, oh, that's old so-and-so. He's been calling for the past 10 years. And I said, well, this is the first time I've gotten the call, so we're going to treat it like it's the first time we've gotten the call. And when code compliance went out, not only was he right about those issues, but there were 10 other issues that they identified. And it was because we took that call seriously that people had the confidence that the city would take action. And that's what the city's supposed to do. We shouldn't be neglecting calls because somebody's called a couple of times. If you need to call a couple of times to solve the problems, then that's what we need to do.
Squeaky wheel gets the oil, is one of my grandmother used to say, right?
Right.
So, let's move on to another question, because you all bring up really, really, really good points. And this is one of my favorite ones here. No? Nice to see you, bubble out. This is the first time I met Lindsay. We've been Facebook friends for a while, but I've never met her before. Thanks.
Let's go that. Go to the floor.
Okay, here we go. I understand that the new Robo parking garage that's behind City Hall cost is over $16 million with 200 spaces. So each space costs approximately $80,000 a piece. Do you feel this is a wise investment? And how will this help the citizens of West Hollywood? And who paid John Heilman to go to Europe to investigate the garage? The taxpayers? Start with you, Mary.
I'm all for the Robo Garage.
You're all for
I visited Seoul, Korea, and if you go to the Far East, we're really importing a type of parking system that they use in the Far East all over the place. Mm-hmm. So the cramped spaces, Hong Kong, Tokyo, all over. Robo Garage. So it's not unique to West Hollywood. We're the pioneer to bring it to California. So, and I think Mid-City needs parking. That if we're ever going to develop the Mid-City, we need to have more parking and parking.
How does that help the LGBT community, though?
Well,
how does that impact me? I live on Kings Road. How is that making my life better?
Well, let's say that Mid-City starts to develop and becomes the theater district, like we have sometimes advocated Mid-City to be a theater district.
Well, there are two theaters near me. There's the Coast and there's the Maca Playhouse, which used to be the Shakespeare Theater, right there behind, what's that restaurant? Hugo's.
Right.
Hugo's, right. So
businesses can't thrive without parking. Parking is such an issue that you need it for the city employees and you need it for for residents and for guests.
Well, if you're going out to Hamburger Mary's,
Yeah.
now you have a lot more places to park. If you're going out, you know, we've seen that restaurant across the street turn over a couple of times. The most recent
Yes,
was Don't Tell
Mama.
Mama, and it's really sad
to
see those restaurants that you get attached to. You know, that bring in a community. You know, they serve the neighborhood. They don't have the support because of the parking, and so we have to do everything that we can to increase parking options and make them accessible to folks. Sometimes people don't even know what parking options exist around them, and so I think that's where technology can come into play. There's a Park Me app that people can use to understand
I saw that. Yeah.
where parking spaces are in the community. I mean, if you
What
have
about
that on your
breaking
phone.
down? What if this thing breaks down and Princess is out, it's 2 a.m, and she can't get her car, or he can't get his car. Who do they call? Ghostbusters?
I don't know the internal workings of the garage, but I'm sure that they have remedies for that situation.
I mean, it will break down.
Yeah.
It's something that's automated, so it definitely, I mean, you know, it will break down.
Well, there's multiple garages bringing the cars down, so maybe one breaks, but the others are.
But the others don't. It keeps going. Duke?
My opinion on this, quite frankly, is that we have a lot of better things to be spending our money on. You know, yes, we're a fiscally sound city. We're one of the most economically sound and fiscally sound cities in California and America. Having said that, you know, we have a major homeless issue.
Oh, I see them all the time.
And we have a major rent issue. And we have a lot of issues. We're a great city, and we're in great shape in many ways. But my personal opinion is that we should be spending $16 million on things that actually benefit our citizens.
I kind of agree with that, Larry.
The nice part about having a AAA bond rating is that we don't have to spend anything on that robo-garage. We can borrow the money through bonds, and we can finance it through debt service. And debt service pays off the garage all by itself.
When you say debt service,
Debt
what does that
service,
mean?
meaning we issue bonds and we're paying the interest on those bonds through the revenue that's derived from the parking garage. So the parking garage is paying for itself as it goes, the same way you would buy a mortgage. You would put a down payment down, you would get credit, and then you would pay off your house. And it would appreciate in value, supposedly. But so we're paying it off through debt service as a renter, a person.
So it doesn't affect my taxes in any way, or?
It should not affect your taxes. Maybe it helps your taxes. Well, I mean, I don't know what taxes you want to go down. Your tax rates are your tax rates.
Right,
but does it affect the city's budget or financial position? Only unless if the revenue that is derived from it is not enough to pay off the debt service and requires additional borrowing.
I'm all for innovation. That's the thing. I understand.
It looks great on paper.
I feel very strongly that we have a lot of better things to be focusing on. And I think, you know, look, I respect the current council. I think we've done a great job. I think the library is beautiful. But for instance, we build this beautiful building, and yet the library is only opened from 11 till 5. I'm like, well, I mean, if we're going to build the thing and you know, spend God knows how much money we spent on it,
10 million.
Then 10 million.
Not 10 million, actually, it's more. But
For the library?
no, we were supposed to get 10 million in donations, but we only got 3.9 million in donations. So we're basically $6 million in the hole for donations for the library. So that nobody ever talks about that, but we're in the hole for $6 million.
I actually served on the county library commission, so
But who goes to the library? I don't mean to interrupt, but like,
I
who goes to the
I
library?
do.
Okay, doesn't everyone just Google and you can get everything through your apps?
Well, but a library serves a lot of different functions. I mean, students go there to study. People who are independent contractors can work instead of working in isolation at home. It's now, you know, a sort of a shared workspace. We really don't have shared workspace in West Hollywood. That's something I'm focused on bringing to this community, because I think increasingly you have independent contractors or small startup operations that could use that shared workspace. But the library situation is a county problem. We actually, our county, the library is operated by the county. So
The library is operated by the county.
yes, and so the financial, they're having financial issues with operating their libraries countywide. Some libraries are being shut down. So our library is actually a model of how to keep a library open and how to get the community engaged in a library. So, and that's actually also a great example of good
It
development.
is a beautiful building.
I just think why not use that money to invest in you know, accessible public transportation so that seniors and young people can actually go to the library. You know,
Larry?
The question on that library of who I know who uses it is a lot of senior citizens who do need training, and we do have special equipment there for the for disabled people and Optilex machines for people who are blind to be able to use, and there's cost ineffective for people to have in their homes. So the library offers more than just a cost of the library. It's really a meeting place. We have many of our community
It's the place
meetings
for
there.
you. It's the place for me. It's your local county library. Do you remember that
good.
commercial from New York? Remember that jingle? Yeah.
I don't remember that.
It's a beautiful library, but a lot of people did say, like, well, why are we putting this into a public library? Everyone goes online to get all this stuff, but it's true. It's a training. It's tools for the elderly.
And there's demand for it to be open more hours, and I think that's
why
something.
Is it limited? Why are those hours?
Because of the county. That's
Because
what
of
it's
the
starting.
county.
So
So
the
the county
service
sets
is
that.
the service
Yeah.
is financially restricted because of the county. Now, I think if the city wants to fund the county operation staying open longer, I think that's certainly a conversation worth
so the
exploring.
city can
Let's put
step in
18
and do that?
Let's put $18 million into that, I would say. You know.
Well,
I don't know if we want to spend $18 million
No.
on keeping the
No.
library
No.
open.
But, you know,
I do think, I think we hear time and time again that traffic and parking are the number one and number two issues. I think those are the
I think I
things
got
that we're
some questions
investing
there
in. So.
for traffic and parking.
I can't wait. As a transportation commissioner, I'd love to talk about those issues.
But just as a point, you can't spend $18 million or any millions of dollars on running a library, which is directly out of your pocket, when basically when you're building the Robo Garage, you're borrowing the money, you're not putting it out of your pocket, you're servicing it with the revenue that is derived. If you put the money into running the library, there's no revenue to derive to pay off that bond that you're basically over time losing the $18 million. But over time, you're paying down the debt, and then you have this asset, and this asset is worth something, and it continues to produce revenue, and it becomes a revenue producer for the city.
Instead of in the black.
In the black.
Okay, versus then in the red. So they did run short on their donation money. They did expect to raise $10 million. They raised like 3
something.
I got a shelf. I got a shelf.
Well, I think they actually only raised 2 something, and then they have commitments for another 1.3 million. They raised like 2.6, and they got commitments for 1.3 more that isn't even in the bank. So we're actually almost 60% to 75% off of our target of donations, even after the library is open 2 years.
So how do we get that money? How do we need? Do we just do a fundraiser, or how do they expect to get the rest of that donation money?
They're hoping Charles Cohn renames the library Charles Cohn and donates the rest of the money, or maybe John Hommel will raise all the money. Charles Cohn, the owner of the Pacific Design Center. I'm teasing, but there was always rumors about who wants the library named after themselves.
Well,
and
John
then they would
Hommel
raise
was
the money.
very instrumental in getting that library done,
Yes.
correct? And so, but I don't think anybody's name should be on it. It belongs to the people of West Hollywood. So
West Hollywood has a naming ordinance. You cannot name a building after a person until 5 years after their death. So in reality, it would really not be named after John Hallman unless he.
Or you can get a fountain.
Get a fountain.
This is going to wrap up the first part of the show. Stay with us, and thank you, West Hollywood. Stay tuned for part 2. Tonight, West Hollywood. We're out. Everybody need a break? Some water? Going to go to the bathroom?
The air would be good.
Yeah, we're going to turn the air on.